Data is arguably the most important part when it comes to a machine learning process. You can have the perfect architecture, the perfect training logic, the most modern hardware. If your data is of low quality, or if it's non-existent, if the labeling of your data is of low quality, every effort is futile. Because of that, we're going to learn how to do professional and efficient data annotation in this video today. This means we're going to start with a raw data set, so in our case, images of text, and we're going to easily label them in order to train a model, deploy it, and then use it to automatically label a much larger data set with a high level of quality. And this doesn't only work for text data, it also works for a number of different formats like audio and health data, for example. This is going to be quite interesting today, so if you like this video, let me know by hitting a like button and subscribing. But now, let us get right into it. Alright, now let us take a brief look at what we're going to do in this video today. Now, as you can see, I have here two folders, one containing 200 images, another one containing 2000 images, and these images are images of Vietnamese text. So when we go through them, you can see a bunch of Vietnamese text here in different formats. I cannot read any of that, but that is what we're going to use to do data annotation on. In the 2000 images directory, same thing, just a bunch of more images here. And the idea is that we're going to annotate 200 images manually, easily, in a very convenient way. Then we're going to train a model to do the annotation for us on the rest of the images. So on the 2000 images, which is a much more tedious task. And of course, this can also be done for 20,000 images if you want to. And we're going to do all of this here using Unitlab. And we can do that on Unitlab very easily. We can do that with different formats, with different types of data in an automated way, in a manual way, and also by using our own custom deployed model. Now, I do need to mention for the sake of transparency here that this video is also sponsored by Unitlab, so I partnered up with them for this video today. However, you can use their product without having to pay any money, so you don't have to pay in order to be able to do what I do in this video today. You can go to the pricing plan and you can see they have a free forever plan. The only limitation is you cannot use private data sets. That's basically it. So in order to not waste your time, let's start right away. We're going to sign in, or you're going to create an account if you don't have one. And once you're inside your Unitlab dashboard, you will be able to just create a new project. In my case, I do have some projects here that I want to show you later on. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project and I'm going to upload the dataset that I just showed you. So I'm going to call this one tutorial Vietnamese OCR. And I'm going to pick here as the annotation type image OCR. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to say create project, and then I can upload the images. So I click here on upload data. Then I click on select files. On my system here, then I can choose the folder, 200 images. I can select all these images, open them. They're going to be loaded here into the browser. And then the only thing I have to do is I have to upload them. And then I have to confirm myself as the annotator. There you go. So everything's uploaded. Click on next. Then I have myself here as the annotator, assign. And that's basically the upload process. Now, what we can do is we can start annotating this manually, completely manually if we want to. I would not recommend that. So what you could do is you could just pick here this bounding box tool and start typing the text yourself. What we're going to do is we're going to go to automation. We're going to click on new automation. And here now for select model, I'm going to double click and I'm going to select a model for document OCR. So by doing that alone, I can start annotating the files very easily. So I just apply and save. Then I go back to the files. I click on view. And now I have this magic crop tool here. And what happens when I use this is I can basically just drag it along the image like this. And in a second here, you will see it's annotated completely. So this is annotated correctly and it annotated everything at once. Now, if you see some problems here, you can always manually change them. You have all these annotations here on the right. And now you just do that for the entire set of the images. So you can zoom out, you can say, okay, annotate all of that. And if there are any problems anywhere, you can just fix them. There you go. This works. Next one. And you do that for all these 210 images. You do this once manually. I mean, it's semi-manually because you do have this automation that annotates it for you, but you don't have to type everything yourself. And you also don't have all the images being labeled automatically. You still have to drag around this magic box, but basically this is how you do the manual annotation. And once everything is labeled, it looks like this. You have your full data set with the proper labels. So I can open this up. There you go, we have all these labels and our data set is ready to go. Now, before we move on with the export though, let me briefly show you other use cases that you can have. So for example, we could have something like audio segmentation as a use case if you don't just want to work with text data. This would look like that. If I open this, you can see that every segment of audio here is labeled with a speaker. So speaker 1, speaker 2, and we can also see what exactly they're saying. So that is also something that we can do in Unitlab, easily annotating audio data. Now I changed my audio settings here to record the desktop audio. And now we can see if I click on speaker 3, for example, Harry quickly climbed onto the back of the boat and hid. And now if I say play,
Harry quickly climbed onto the back of the boat and hid. The boat.
Yeah, that's the basic idea. So we can annotate audio data like this as well. Then there's also the very powerful use case of medical annotation. So here I have a project where we have the spine and the lungs annotated. So we have a 3D view here of a human body scan. So I can just turn this on here and I can now just drag this, or actually I have to select the spine, which is actually already selected. Then I can just move this around and you can see how the spine is being followed here, how the spine is annotated. And the same also here. Everything here is annotated at the proper point in time. And what I can also do is I can use this magic touch tool. Now, don't ask me about human anatomy or something like this, but on a technical level, what I can do is I can use this magic touch tool, touch something, and then it's going to be highlighted and marked across these different views. And the third example I wanted to show you is also text-based. We have named entity recognition. I already have a video on this channel where I explain what this is. Basically, we have some text, for example, Hamlet here, and we can label different parts of the text. So here you can see we have some text. This is not OCR now, this is labeling, this is named entity recognition, which means we recognize, okay, this is a person, this is a title, this is a location. And then I can go here and just label myself. So I can click this entity tool, I can select person, I can say, okay, that is person, that is person, that is probably also a person. And then I can do something else, like, for example, location. I'm not sure if I'm going to find a location here now, but if not, let's just say the bed is a location, even though it isn't. Or actually, Francisco, no, that's probably a person. But you get the idea. I have the text, I have different classes that I can assign, and I can just click on the words to label them, and then I can use this to train a model to do named entity recognition, or NER. So as you can see, we can do multimodal data annotation here in Unitlab, but now let us go back to our initial project, which is the tutorial Vietnamese OCR. So I can click on this here on the fully annotated data set. And now what I would like to do is I would like to export it into a format, into a commonly used format called COCO that I can then use to train a model on it. So I want to train an annotation model that is reliable because I labeled the data now myself. Now I want to feed it into a model that can do the annotation for me. And this model is trained on my annotation skills, so on my manually annotated data. And I want to then use this model to annotate 2000 images. That is the whole idea here. For this, I need to first export this as a dataset. So what I do is I go into the project, then I go to release datasets, and then I click on release dataset. Here I can choose now the train validation test split. So 80% of the data will be used for training, 10% for validation, 10% for testing. And the format I want to use here is COCO. You can also use YOLO if you want to. I'm going to use COCO. Then I will click on release. And before we actually download this thing onto our system, what I want to do is I want to do something called data augmentation. Data augmentation is not the same as data annotation. Annotation is what we already did here. Augmentation means taking the annotated data and altering it in slight ways so that we get more data. So we artificially create more data out of the data that we already have. So how do I do that? I go to the data tab. And then what I do is I click on these 3 points and I choose new dataset version. By clicking that, I get here a couple of augmentation options. For example, I can add some blur, I can crop the image, I can rotate, I can increase or decrease the saturation, I can do something with the brightness and so on. And by doing that, I artificially create more images based on the actual images that I have here for training. So in my case, I'm going to disable rotation, I'm going to disable flipping, and I'm going to also set some stuff manually. For example, here for cropping, I can click on the pen and I can say something like anywhere from 1% to, I don't know, 20% or something. And down here now I can choose how many images I want to create. I think my camera is blocking this, so let me move this to the lower left. And now you can see here the number of images that I'm generating by this augmentation. I can also decrease that. And what I want is I want around 1,000 images that I can use for training. So maybe let's go like this. I can click on create. This is now going, again, I'm repeating, this is going to take these images, it's going to change something about the saturation, it's going to crop them, it's going to add some noise to basically make it more difficult for our model to complete the task. And this makes our model more resilient to changes, so to say. That's the basic idea. We're enhancing our dataset, we're augmenting our dataset. All right, so now this new dataset version was created. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go to this version to 0.2 if it's not automatically selected. Then I'm gonna click on download. And then I'm going to choose again the Cocoa format, download, and that is going to allow me to save it in my tutorial directory. Now we can take a look at this JSON file by saying, for example, in the terminal tail Cocoa and then whatever the file is called. And here you can see basically what we have. We have a bunch of dictionary objects, I mean JSON objects obviously, and we have also the text and the bounding boxes for the recognized text. So yeah, you have a bunch of data that can be used for training a model to do this task for us. Now, I've already done this training here. So basically you just take this model, you train it, and then you want to deploy it. I'm not going to cover the training process in too much detail here because the focus of this video is on the data annotation. But for the sake of completeness, the package or the framework that we use for the training here is the MMOCR framework. And the models, to be precise, we're using DBNet for the text detection and ABINet for the text recognition. This training then results in PyTorch files that we can use. These are the model files, but we also want to deploy them to an endpoint that we can use in Unitlab. Also a process that I don't want to cover in too much detail here because we're going to focus on the annotation, as I mentioned. But here, essentially, we have this GitHub repository that explains everything. And we also have a guide that shows us how to integrate this into Unitlab. This is a part that I'm going to show again. So considering that the model is already deployed and usable, we can easily integrate it in Unitlab and do automatic annotation with it. So for this, we just have to copy the URL of the endpoint once it's running and once it's deployed. Then we go to Unitlab and we go to the starting page. We go to My AI Models, and then we create a new model. We integrate a new AI model. So I click on this button here, and now I can give it a name. Let's call it Auto OCR model or whatever. I can give it some description, my model for custom OCR. Then we can say generic type image. Then the data type is going to be image OCR. And then here now we need to paste the URL to the model endpoint. In my case, that's going to be this. So this IP address /API1 OCR end-to-end regions. And then we can click on next. Here we can upload now a test image to see if it actually works. So I can just click on this. This will open up my file explorer. I can just pick any of these files here and I can upload it to validate the endpoint. And there you go. I got a valid response from the deployed model. As you can see, 200 OK. And I also get the respective bounding boxes with the text and everything. So this works. I can click on next. Here now I have to provide some tags. Let's just add one tag here because I think one is required. I'm going to go with OCR, for example. Do I have to say enter? I think so. And then I also have here the default class of bounding box. I can click on next again. And that is basically the summary. I can now say confirm, and this now created my model that I can use now for automatic annotation in Unitlab. So with this, we can now go back to projects and we can create a new project. I can click here, new project. I'm gonna go for image OCR again, and let's call this large Vietnamese OCR. And now we're going to use our trained model to do auto labeling on the 2000 images that we talked about before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the images. I'm going to go to select files. Here I'm going to take all these images, open them up, click on upload. And once everything is uploaded, we can click on next. I can assign it to myself again. And there you go. We have a new project. So what we want to do now is we want to have an automation again for the labeling, but this time we're going to use our own custom model. So I'm going to go here to automation. I'm going to say new automation, and I'm going to select now again the model, but this time I'm going to go with my auto OCR model that I created myself. I'm going to click here, select model, and in the dropdown, I'm going to go with auto OCR model, which is my model. I'm going to leave everything as is. The only thing I want to change here is the color of the bounding box. I want to have more contrast here. So let's go for something like green. Okay, there you go. Close this. Now we have the screen labeling. I can apply and save. And with all this now, I can batch label automatically. How do I do that? I go and set this to 60 per page so I can do more at once. And then I just start selecting these images here. I click then on select all to easily select all of them. And then I click on batch auto label. So by clicking on this, my customly trained model is now labeling all of these documents automatically. As you can see here, the bounding boxes appear already in the preview. So all of these are now being labeled automatically. There you go. So these are labeled now, and we can, for example, take a look at a random one of these like this one. And the cool thing is I can now also manually adjust stuff if I am not happy with it. So for example, in this case, everything looks fine. But if I, for example, saw that this one was labeled incorrectly, I can just click on it. I can redrag the bounding box. I can also rotate it if I think that something was messed up there. And I can also change the text. I can say that this is not actually this, but it's actually written in a different way. In this case, it was correct. But let's say I want to change it to that. I can also do that here manually. And this is the process. I can take this, I can do it automatically on all these pages, just select the 60 per page, just do it for every single page, and you don't have to do anything yourself, but you still can do everything yourself if you want to. You can check everything, you can double check, you can correct it, and this is how you can do this automatic labeling in Unitlab. So let's briefly summarize all of this. First of all, data annotation is super important, not just to train other models for annotation. This is like the most important part of the data science / machine learning process. You want to have properly labeled data, whatever you want to do with that. Maybe you want to do diagnoses with medical models. Maybe you want to do document processing. Maybe you want to do some transcription of audio data. Whatever you want to do, you need to have data in order to train the model. Now, in this case, we trained an annotation model to do better annotations for us. That is, of course, like a loop. You train a model to do the task that you did to train this model better, but you can also use the labeled data to do something else. You can also use the labeled data to do predictions and to do forecasting and to do classification and everything. But you saw how easy the process of labeling the data, no matter what your final use case is on Unitlab. You start with a semi-automatic process where you basically just have to drag some squares and then you get a almost perfect labeling. You can still interfere and you can still correct small mistakes. Then you do this for 100 images, for 200 images. You export this as a dataset. You can train a model, deploy the model to your custom endpoint on your Hetzner server, DigitalOcean server, whatever you're using. And then you can just target this endpoint to make the next predictions for you, to do the next document OCR for you. And that is very powerful. We saw that we can handle multiple different formats. We can use named entity recognition. We can do audio segmentation, medical data. We can also do much more stuff, as you can see here in the annotation types. And you will find a link to them in the description down below. You'll find a link to Unitlab in the description down below. I definitely recommend you to check out this product. You can also use it for free. You don't have to pay money if you want to just play around with it. It's an awesome product. Check it out. The link is in the description down below. So that's it for this video today. I hope you enjoyed it and hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting a like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to check out Unitlab, the sponsor of this video today. As I mentioned, you will find a link to them in the description down below. And also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you much for watching. See you in the next video, and bye.